All right, so the attack framework, if you're not familiar with it, this is the standard for evaluating how people break into networks, the stages, steps they go through, and it's on many versions. And my particular project here, you're hunting for attack version 9, which is several years old now. I think they're up to 15 or something, and I just have been too busy to update this. But the point is, when I first saw this, I rebelled. I said, this is far too much information. How could anybody learn all this? Just like compliance frameworks, like SOC 2 and everything, my first thought is, oh, these are too confusing, but they really need them on the job. My students told me you should have spent more time on that, you really need that. And I realized you really need to know all these things, all these facts. You should be familiar with them all. And so the plan here is you have the steps of an attack, you have reconnaissance, where you scan the network, then you develop some resources like setting up virtual machines or attack tools, then somehow you get initial access, usually by phishing, you somehow get some access in the machine, some ability to execute code, then you have persistence to stay even through reboots, and then privilege escalation to move from local administrator up to from local user to administrator to domain administrator, and then you have to somehow evade the defenses that they have on the system, and then you steal credentials, and then you do lateral movement, which is a big issue because usually the first machine you get on is an unimportant machine like one desktop of like a help desk worker, and you want to get to the real database and things like that. So you move through the network, and this is often where you catch them, and especially in a world of ransomware, this is where you mostly focus to try to limit the spread of the ransomware. It's to somehow, like in the one we just did with Splunk, one USB key infected one machine, it then connected to a file server and encrypted all the files in the file server. And you would like to do something like detect and attempt to access too many files at once on the file server, or somehow prevent that. Then you can collect any other kind of data. You have external command and control servers, so you can maintain remote control and do a variety of things with your bots. And the exfiltrating data is a big issue. When China attacked Google in 2010, this is how they caught them. They put malware on Google servers. It stayed there for months. Nobody cared. They were also every major company in America. But when they took the stolen data and sent it back to China, they detected it on the way out saying, why is data going to a server in China that is not one of our offices? And that's how they caught them. So this is in fact a big problem. How do you sneak your data out? And there's other impacts like just reformatting the drives, breaking the equipment. And this is an attempt to organize the steps of an attack. And of course, not every attack does all these, but there's many ways to rate them. Here's the attack techniques you have. It also rates defenses. The mitigations are here, and it gives them code numbers. So here's mitigations, and the mitigations are tied to the attack techniques, and it also organizes attack groups, the threat actors, and it tells you what their techniques are and what their goals are. So you can plan, here's my business, here's who I think is going to attack me, and therefore I can focus on preventing the things that they're likely to do. That's the idea, and everybody making commercial tools is all rating them by these things. And everybody doing threat intelligence is using these. This is a central repository of organizing all this security information. And by the way, it appears like it's going to be shut down by the Trump administration. It's run by MITRE, and they just fired the guy in charge of it, and it looks like they're going to abandon it, just like they're abandoning the CVE framework. About 3 months ago, the CVE framework funding was canceled, and they found an emergency temporary source for just like 10 or 11 months. So right now, the security community is largely talking about moving this to a more responsible country in Europe and not making it at all associated with the US government anymore, because the current US government administration is just the Republican dream of just having no government at all. They don't think the government should provide any services of any kind, and all the money should just go to billionaires. There should be no services provided, no FEMA, no nothing, and certainly none of this stuff. So anyway, there's going to be some changes. Although, in the optimistic scenario I imagine Democrats will win in 26, and this will all start being reversed. But anyway, regardless, this is the current standard for organizing your security information, your defense information, your attack information, and your threat actor information. You got something? Nope. Okay, anyway, so it's good. Everybody should get familiar with this. And so I just made a couple projects where you practice using it. These are structured like the Khan Academy. So there's just a series of questions. You have to get 5 in a row right, and then you'll get a flag. And you just have to go to there and search. And so you just get practice looking up these things, and everything has a number. These are tactics, there's techniques, And the tactics are these 10 or 12 things you do, like we were talking about recon, resource development, and so on. And the techniques are specific little techniques you use to do these things. And so you practice looking them up. There's many categories. And there's one at the end where you use a navigator. The navigator is like an Excel spreadsheet looking thing where you can compare two groups. This group does this group does that, what do they do in common, and so on. So those are fun. And there's a new one I wanted to show you, which should appear when I refresh. Oh, somehow it's not up there. But there's one just for OCS. I'll add it there. It's here. They made an attack matrix for OCS now, for ICS. It's the trendy thing. So here's the ICS matrix and all the techniques they use. And you see it's got the sort of thing, impair response, impair process control, and so on. So there's also one, I think, just for mobile. This thing grew, it turned out to be very valuable. And so I made a challenge where you solve puzzles for this. And I'll put it up there in just a minute. I just need to upload the file. I know, I'm not trying to disparage it. Everybody's talking about it. Because, of course, the critical infrastructure push. This started from Washington before the current administration, a big push to secure our critical infrastructure for good reasons, yeah. I'm not trying to put it down, just everybody's throwing ICS everywhere, just like...
And they don't know anything about it.
That's the problem, of course, but that's what happens when it's the new thing. And like everybody has to put AI in everything, whether it makes sense or not. Everybody has to apply to ICS. So anyway, there's an attack matrix for it, and these things evolve really fast. Like the first one was pretty simple, and they kept growing and growing. And but anyway, we should all be getting used to this. We should learn all these techniques, at least be aware of what they are, and know a little bit about them. So that's all this is. Practice with that. So you might want to try that out. If you're not familiar with it, you should certainly be familiar with the attack matrix.